You are with the University of Karate, and again, we've joined Sensei Mike Biddle to look at the principles, the techniques, the methods, the history, the culture, the science that come together to form what we know as the martial arts. Today, we're looking at a very, very small part of the body to some, but a very important part of the body. As we go through a number of these different talks, we'll be talking about various parts of the body and their significance as they're used in the martial arts. And today we're talking about the elbow, the use of the elbow in the martial arts, as far as position, as far as power, and even pain. Sensei Mike Biddle has practiced the martial arts for over 40 years, especially the style Uechi-ryu. And Uechi-ryu brings a very unique understanding, and maybe one day we'll talk about the fact that though some people may look at it as a regular karate style, I'm not sure how they look at it, but Wei-Churu has all types of elbow strikes, forward, back, side. Um, they have lunging elbow strikes, rotational elbow strikes, flying knees. There's a lot of stuff that you generally don't see on the surface that are actually in Weichi. Forward flying knees and even jumping back with a flying knee. It's all there. Some of the most spectacular things that people generally look for in MMA are actually in Weichi as a fighting style. But today we're talking about the elbow, and I want to let Sensei Biddle jump right inside here and start talking about, from a positional standpoint, position of developing and delivering power, as well as just the painful nature of this strange part of the Bible. Sorry, strange part of the body, not the Bible. Uh, how this plays into it could be the Bible, so it could be the end of somebody's their last rites. Um, the strange part of the body and how it plays into the martial arts. Sensei Bill, go right ahead.
Yeah, the elbow, like John mentioned, positionally, if you watch Uechi-ryu, and it's a very specific way we position the elbows. And so let's talk about two parts of that. Let's talk about the positioning and how that works, and then how that works into application. The elbows are always pulled in and down, and that creates pressure on the upper part of the shoulder, and even curls the shoulders slightly forward. My instructor always described it as the look of a cobra. The head of like a king cobra, where that hood it's hooded like. So you curled that off. Now, when you pull those elbows in and you pull those shoulders down properly, and if you're in a proper Sanchin position, when you do that, you actually close off the solar plexus. So you've made, if your chest is up and back, your solar plexus is wide and open. If you pull the elbows in and you curl that down a little bit, you literally close that off so that you can take a punch there, and it's not going to knock the wind out of you, which is not a pleasant experience. But you can't do that properly if you don't pull the elbows in. It's a combination of pulling the elbows in, down, forward, and then curling the hips and Sanchin, and then maintaining that position. And then once your elbows now are in and inside, and I've said this before, Uechi-ryu is an inside art. And it's just, I like to look at it, to me, I look at it like it's the ultimate expression of a self-defense art, because it is not designed to attack. I mean, of course it can, but nobody, a true, real Uechi-ryu practitioner would rather not. I'm going to always let the opponent make the first move. I don't want to go and do something. I want to let them make the first move. And if my elbows are in, whether my palms are up in Sanchin position or turned over in sort of like the other kata forms, my elbows are always inside, and I'm inside the midline of my midline and his midline. And also I've created tension now, not with a lot of muscular tightness by pulling and squeezing like you see a lot of people do nowadays. I'm just talking about positional tightening. I just want to be in that position. I don't have to be pulling down hard and squeezing hard and tensing my muscles. Those angles create the tension. By getting in that angle, you now have positional strength. So if somebody grabs you like reaches out and grabs your arm, you're in a strong positional position. They're not just going to move you because you've rooted yourself, you've connected everything. When you pull those elbows in, you've connected your upper arm, inside your bicep to your sort of to your pec area. You closed off underneath the armpit, which is a good thing because I know where to strike in there to cause harm. There's a lot of sensitive nerves up and under the armpit. So, we protect that. So you're in a position now where you're inside. Someone grabs you, you're on the inside. So it's just creating the body and putting it in proper alignment. Now the elbow, so let's move sort of toward application. As you're moving in Uechi-ryu, as you're moving, let's just talk about Sanchin for a moment. As you're moving through Sanchin, your Sanchin strikes, the elbow pulls in and the hand crosses the midline, and then the elbow pulls back and down. But you're pulling in, and that's a very powerful motion. So if you're pulling in and down, and then you're back, as you do that Sanchin thrust, the number one, and we've talked about this in another video, the number one mistake that I see in the martial arts and punches everywhere, all places, is as the arm is extending, the elbow is outside of the mid of the side of the body. You want to keep that elbow underneath until it doesn't turn over. The elbow never comes out, never comes outside, turns outward. You never get external rotation of the elbow. If you hold your arm out, put your point of your elbow down, and you feel how what that does to the shoulder. You can actually feel that tighten up the shoulder. Now take that elbow and externally rotate it, so point it away from you. Two things happen. Your armpit's opened up and your shoulder has separated out. You don't want that separation because you don't want to be struck in that position. That's how you get dislocated shoulders. And Uechi-ryu has lots of techniques to do that. We have some fun ones for that, trust me. So you don't want to be there. Now rotate that elbow back underneath and let's see how that brings that shoulder back in and shoulder girdle in line again. That's how your punch should come out. And then your hand just turns over at the very end, but the elbow never comes out from underneath. And then when that elbow is pulled back in, it's going to turn, rotate, and pull back inside toward the midline, again in that good classic Sanchin position. So there's a million things going on in that technique, but just think about that elbow and how if the elbow comes away from the midline, it's disconnected from the body and it does not have as much power. It can't.
Mm.
So if you're trying to punch somebody, just try this. Hold your arm at chest high, pull your elbow out so it's as far away from your body as it is, like a 90-degree angle. And then now think about how you're going to punch with that. There's nothing there. Now, if you take that elbow, pull it in, and then just extend, you have power. So let me say this. In a solid Sanchin position, if the elbow is in, I can punch from there. I can do anything. I can move my arm out into a palm strike. I can go with a finger strike, one knuckle strike, anything. Just by extending the arm from the Sanchin position. I don't need to draw it back. One of my instructors one time said that you draw the hand back for speed, you keep it inside for power. So if someone draws their arm back to punch, and you put your arm, you put your hand on their fist, there's no power to push away from the body. Like if you're doing bench press, your strength is greatest as the elbows move out, the arms move out. When you're against your chest, because of range of motion and the muscles fully stretched, you don't have a lot of power there. Now that's where you can generate speed. I'm not saying that's wrong, but in a real situation, nobody's drawing the elbow too far back to punch. They're always, if you watch boxers, where are their elbows? They're inside. They're inside. because that's how they're going to do their punch. Now, they're going to create the punch not by extending the arm, but by what we talked about before, rotation. Another topic. So back to the elbow. So that's in a punch. We talked about that. Now, there's a million applications of that movement. So if somebody in Uechi-ryu, if somebody punches, we have our circle block. I can pull and drop that elbow down inside and on top of the arm and then drag them into me. So if someone grabs you, you can take that elbow and pull the arm down and drag it in. I don't like to talk about application a lot because there's always a what if and what's that and where's this and where's that. But just trying to give you the idea, if you use that elbow, it's a tremendous power move because it's connected to your lats and that's a very strong muscle. And you can generate a lot of force by doing that. So if someone grabs you and starts trying to shake you and move, if you're locked in and you're solid in San Chen, they're not going to do anything with you. They're not going to yank you forward. What they like to do is either yank you forward so that your body comes in front of your hips, or push you back so they can get down low, so they can go for your legs. You don't want to do that. You want to stay in a San Chen straight back, solid position, elbows in. And no matter what you do, if you're standing and you let your elbows out, you just create relax. Your tension goes out and your power position changes. Now the elbow strikes in Uechi-ryu, and we really have, there's many, but let's just talk about the two obvious ones. In Seisan is well, you see it in some of the other kata, but that's another topic. I usually look at Seisan and I look at Sanchin, Seisan, Sanseiru because that's where the origin started. In Seisan, you step, you do a circle block step, and you do this elbow strike. How does that elbow strike create its power? Because the fist is pulled back. Now there is a rotation of the shoulders, yes, and that's where you're going to generate a lot of power, but it's generated by the elbow and the arm turning outwards. So you're twisting the arm. And there's a little bit of crane in there because you're using your fist to turn it down. And that turning actually keeps, and your elbow is never coming out from the midline. It's never swinging out. You want it to stay inside, and you want to create that power with that turning of the hand. And then, we strike it with the other palm just to sort of say this is where it is. And if you had that palm out and you had someone's head there and you brought them together, that's pretty nasty.
Mm.
And then, of course, the entire forearm for a Uechi-ryu practitioner is the weapon. It's not just the elbow bone. I can strike anywhere on my forearm because we do this conditioning. We get the muscles conditioned. We do a little bone conditioning, and the entire arm is the strike area. So don't think about that it has to be that range. Again, when you apply a motion, when you watch a technique, what you see is not always necessarily what you want to be able to do. Any motion could be shortened or lengthened. It's not hard. You just have to get the mechanics right. And we usually, with the elbow strike, it's usually a position where we step inside and drive that elbow like to the sternum, or it could be to the head, but the target can vary. And again, you got to think of angles here. Don't always think of straight ahead, because if the elbow, you see the elbow strike and they're rotating and they're turning and they're striking, the opponent might be at a 45-degree angle, and that might make more sense when you see it that way. The second thing you've got to look at is when mostly when we're doing our forms, you see what I call um, just the model form where you do a circle block, you do a punch, you do a circle block, you do a kick. You don't see the combinations in the movement.
Mm-hmm.
If you start to move from San Chen to Seisan, you start to move into Dragon. So now you see moving techniques. So the elbow strike is moving. you're circle blocking, you're stepping, and you're moving into that elbow strike. And it's created with movement, not static. We got to stop looking at all these techniques as static techniques and start figuring out how they move.
Hmm.
And that's the incorporation of dragon. And that's something that we'll talk about another time is how Sanchin, Seisan, Sanseru moves you through, Uechi-ryu, Tiger Dragon Crane, how they move you through the succession of the animal styles, how they start to incorporate themselves. Yes, there's a little dragon. Well, there can be dragon in Sanchin, but nobody does it. There's a little crane in Sanchin, certainly. Um, and tiger is something that is a little bit different. Not it's not what everybody thinks it is. But when you see the three kata that Kanban originally brought over, we see that transition. So when you see that elbow strike, think of the elbow strike as a moving thing. Now we have the vertical strike as well, and that's done, where the elbow comes straight up. And again, the power is created in that by the rotation, the lifting of the arm, and the rotation of the wrist. You'll see that wrist turn into a four knuckle strike, or what, a leopard punch, right? Sort of a four knuckle strike, and it brings the elbow up. So it's an inline vertical technique. You usually see that with a big step, a lean into, and I like watching Master Uechi when he does that. A lot of people try to stay straight upright too much. You'll see he gets a slight lean into it where his back is like at a 45-degree angle going into the technique. So he's driving that. Now you can do that in application as many ways. You can do that where you step and strike, or you step and strike. So you can move into the opponent, or you can move through the opponent. And again, remember, don't think straight ahead. I'm going to say this a million times. When you watch that vertical elbow strike, you see that going straight ahead. But now just imagine the opponent is not facing you, but he's at a 45-degree angle.
Hmm.
That changes the strike point, doesn't it? Either it's the horizontal elbow strike, or the vertical elbow strike is going in a new place. At a 45-degree angle, what is exposed on that side? The back of the jawbone, the carotid artery, the knockout punch.
Hmm.
One more elbow technique we have, and it's right in San Chen, is when you draw your arm back to do a punch, you have an elbow strike. And just think about how you could use that. So someone is behind you, and you just draw your arm back. You can draw it back as fast as you want and create an elbow strike. But it's done properly. It's not just pulled back. If you reach out and just pull the elbow back, you have some power. But if you bring the arm in, connect the elbow and the armpit to the body, and then it drives back, you're going to have more connected force. And that's a general concept about Sanchin and Uechi-ryu, is we are connected. And I'm sort of finished there. Just we are connected. That's how it's done. It's connection.
Hmm. I think we're gonna have to get into our topic, our upcoming topic, when we have thoughts on San Shin. So we'll be putting that out soon. But that will maybe be a topic that we'll talk about, this connectivity element that makes San Shin San Shin. Very interesting. Very interesting. Again, you are with the University of Karate. Please continue this conversation in the comments below. There was a lot of things that Sensei Biddle brought out concerning the idea of where these strikes go, how they generate power, how much power is generated, and also the fact that there's various ways of doing it, stepping into the target, stepping through a target. So much to talk about. Continue the conversation below. Please comment. Please subscribe to this channel. Keep our subscriptions going up. And we are going to look to see you next time at the University of Karate.